Hello everybody, welcome to The Gaming Grappler. This is a show where I talk about video games and MMA. Why those two things? Well, I'm passionate about both of them and I love talking about things that I enjoy. And for today's video, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on UFC 264, Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus the notorious Conor McGregor 3, the final fight in the trilogy. I mean, there are talks about having a fourth fight, but to be honest with you, with how this fight went, there shouldn't be a fourth fight, but we'll get into that. And usually I like to start off talking about the prelims, but the main card was just so stacked from start to finish that I'm not going to have time for it in this video, and we're going to get right into it. We're going to be starting with Sugar Sean O'Malley versus the new guy, Chris Montigno. And right off the bat, this is the filthiest matchup I have ever seen in mixed martial arts. So for those that don't know, Chris Montigno is a last-second fill-in because Sean O'Malley couldn't get an opponent. And Chris Montigno, prior to this fight, was an amateur fighter, and he was working in a factory filling up paint cans. So basically, this is his first pay-per-view fight. This is his first professional fight, and it's on a pay-per-view Conor McGregor card. I mean, that is fucking criminal. No disrespect to Chris Montigno, but, you know, Sean O'Malley is a prospect that the UFC is building up, and it's not for no good reason. The guy is a fantastic striker, and you saw that in this fight. The way the guy moves, he's like a miniature Israel Adesanya. I think they both even copy each other's fighting style from time to time, so that just goes to show you. And at the start of this fight, I don't know how an audience starts cheering for Sean O'Malley. And I'm not saying that as a hater of Sean O'Malley or that people should hate him, but come on, this is Germany versus Poland. I mean, this is brutally one-sided and unfair. This is an underdog situation. I just can't, in good conscience, cheer for a guy that is expected to win by that large of a margin. That's just me. I mean, it's just brutal. Again, this is a criminal matchup. But Chris Montigno, man, this guy showed heart. This was some rocky shit, man. He did not stop his forward pressure. I mean, he got 230 strikes landed on him. Most of them were to his head. Let me just look at the striking breakdown here. Okay, so for Sean O'Malley, he landed 177 shots to the head of Chris Montigno, 45 to the body, 8 to the leg, and oh my God, this is... Okay, for Montigno, he only got 39 to the head, 7 to the body, 24 to the leg to Sean O'Malley. Again, this was a blowout, but Chris Montigno, he showed heart here. This guy, he did not stop his forward pressure the entire fight, and he had laser focus the entire time. He was backing Sean up the entire time. Even though he was getting his ass kicked, he was backing up, and he did not break eye contact. There were times where Sean O'Malley checked the clock on multiple occasions, probably because he was ashamed for not being able to take out Chris Montigno earlier. But Montigno, man, this guy was laser focused, and the crowd got into it. The crowd started cheering for him. And this guy, like, he deserves to be on the UFC because, you know, if he works on his technique, he only was really throwing ones and twos to the header, Sean O'Malley. He was doing a lot of head hunting, probably because he was getting hit so much by the head. But I think that was just a result of him doing all that he knew, or maybe the pressure, but he was giving it everything he had. He did not stop his forward pressure. And I heard a lot of commentators saying that one of the reasons why Sean couldn't take him out of there was because he was consistently on his back foot and he couldn't generate any power moving forward. But again, Montigno showed a lot of heart. He should definitely be a part of the UFC roster. Give this guy some time and some proper training, and, you know, he might be a killer. He might be the next Tony Ferguson. Now, as for the stoppage was a controversial stoppage by Herb Dean. And, you know, a lot of people's thinking about it that it was controversial was because, you know, there was 30 seconds left in the fight. I mean, sure, he's getting his ass kicked, but let the guy go out on his shield. But, you know, it's not that black and white. It's a really complicated situation. You know, in boxing, a lot of deaths in boxing happen in the lower weight classes. And to people who are too tough for their own good, people that can absorb a lot of damage and keep on fighting, and that little damage that gets accumulated over a significant amount of time can kill you. And so maybe Herb thought that's what he was seeing, and he's seen enough. And, you know, maybe he's feeling bad for... I thought the Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson fight should have stopped earlier. That was one of the most brutal things I've seen in a long time. But again, it's not a black... You know what? You wouldn't be saying, oh, that guy should have went out on his shield if he fucking died. Like, let's be honest here. And that was a legitimate possibility. But again, Sean O'Malley, he looked good, but again, like, who are you looking good against? A complete newcomer? A guy whose first professional fight is like right now at this very moment? A guy in his debut fight? I don't like criticizing. I'm not just a blind hater on Sean. I'm just saying, like, look, you're expected to win. I can't possibly like cheer for you under those circumstances. It would be criminal. Now, was this fight of the night? In my opinion, not really, but I'm glad that it was fight of the night, because you know what? It would be fucking criminal to not give Chris Montigno a good payday for what he delivered in this fight. And I'm glad he earned every cent of that 75 grand. I'm glad he got it. The guy showed heart. I look forward to seeing him fight again, but I hope he takes some time off to develop a better fighting style and to develop his skill set. As for Sean O'Malley, we need to get him a top 15 fighter. Everybody's talking about him like he's a part of the top 15 rankings, so give him a top 15 guy. You know, the guy's clearly, UFC's promoting him all the time. They got him on the YouTube channel, so give him some good competition, because we cannot have him fighting these guys anymore. Now for the ladies, when this thing loads. Irene Aldana versus Yana Kunitskaya. I apologize if I didn't pronounce any of those names properly. That's not my forte. This was a very interesting fight. For starters, Irene was way overweight. She was almost 140 pounds for the fight, which was way overweight. And this was a strange one because Yana was highly aggressive in the striking and looked way more busy. And Irene didn't really throw much, but when she landed, it did a lot of damage, and that's basically the tail of the fight. Her counter striking was on point, and I think honestly the weight advantage had a bit to do with it, to be honest with you. And she landed some good shots on her, and then she knocked her on the ground and then finished the fight with some ground and pound. Really not much to say, just a clean sweep. Maybe it was a bit controversial that she didn't make weight, but other than that, this was a pretty good fight. It was ended pretty quickly. It only lasted one round. Pretty surprising considering, like, Yana was putting like a high striking output. I'm surprised that she couldn't get any damage, but again, I think the weight was a huge factor for that. And now we have one of my favorite fights of the night. Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa versus Greg the Prince of War Hardy. And you know, just looking at Greg Hardy, I mean, this guy is built like a brick shit house. The guy does look like a Prince of War. The guy is a former NFL linebacker, so it is no stretch of the imagination to say that the guy can generate a lot of power. Look at Tai Tuivasa. Tai, the professional dad bod Tuivasa, also a power puncher. And I gotta say, this might sound fucking crazy to you guys, but I think that Tai Tuivasa has superstar potential. I mean, like, just the way this guy walked down to Vegas to the Spice Girls of all songs he could have walked out. He walks up to the Spice Girls, and the crowd is just into it. They're all bouncing off their chairs. They're all dancing and singing along with him. And he just has this positive energy that's just infectious to everybody around them. And then he delivers basically a clinic on Greg Hardy. In the early striking exchanges, Tai was landing a lot of good calf kicks, and they were doing a lot of damage. They were breaking Greg Hardy's posture. Now, Greg Hardy also found his rhythm at one point, and he landed a few power shots. But Tai took a few steps back, assessed the situation, and fired, I think it was a left hook to the eye of Greg Hardy, and knocked him out. And that's all she wrote. He landed in a few extra shots that were a bit unnecessary, but, you know, he didn't see referee Mark Smith. Guys, I don't know if you know this, but Mark Smith flies a fighter jet. I know that's completely out of left field, but that shit blew my mind when I heard about it. But and Tai wins the fight, and I said this in my Fighters Picks video. The guy starts doing shoeys immediately. And that's when I think he invented this from college. I bet you he did this in college, but is when you pour beer into a stranger's shoe and he drinks it. He does that right in the octagon. He starts running through the audience doing shoeys with complete strangers. Some asshole put Dustin Poirier's hot sauce in one of them. And again, completely infectious. And yeah, I think this guy has superstar potential in the same way that Derek Lewis has superstar potential, and that people just like him. He needs a top 15 guy. And what's very interesting in my Fighters Pick video, I was talking about how if you wanted to beat Greg Hardy, like if you wanted the easy win, just go for the ground game, just go for wrestling because it's free. I've seen Greg Hardy on the ground, and he's like not even a blue belt. I'm not trying to disrespect the guy, but the ground game is just not developed at this stage in his career. And like I seen him on the ground, it's just not good. If you want an easy win that's open and available, that's how you go. But Ty didn't do that. He went swinging and banging, and he came and he conquered. Now we have the co-main event, and I was looking forward to this fight. I thought it would be an awesome fight, but you know, it was honestly kind of the dud of the night. I picked Stephen Thompson originally to win the fight, partially because I'm gonna be honest, I'm a fanboy. I'm a fan of Stephen Thompson. Okay, I'm a fan of Wonder Boy. I'm just a big fan of the guy, and you know that blind because on paper, Gilbert Burns has a lot of advantages going into the fight. For starters, he's a power puncher, so even though Stephen Thompson outclasses him in the striking department, he always has that Hail Mary power shot to get him out of there, just in case. And he's a good wrestler and jiu-jitsu practitioner. He gave a lot of damage to Kamaru Usman in that first round of the fight, even though he got his ass kicked. But one of the reasons why I was favoring Wonder Boy was the gas tank, because Wonder Boy has a fantastic gas tank. And Gilbert Burns, like, I question the guy's gas tank. It's questionable to me. I wonder, like, how good it can handle. Because I was listening to John Anik, the commentator, who's talking about how Burns is still active in the jiu-jitsu scene. I think he just recently won a tournament. But in this fight, he kind of had to lame it out a bit. Yeah, he had to avoid Stephen Thompson's strikes, and he went for some takedowns. But he didn't do much with the takedowns. There's a lot of laying and praying, very minimal ground and pound. There was a little bit of ground and pound, but not enough. But there was no submission. And, you know, he landed 50% of his takedowns, 3 out of his 6. And didn't do much of them. And to be honest with you, if you are a gold medalist in jiu-jitsu, and you're fighting a guy who's a striker, you should be able to finish the guy. And again, I don't want to shit on the guy, but my thinking is this. There's either one of two options here. Either Wonder Boy is one of the most underrated jiu-jitsu practitioners on the planet, so good that he is like one of the best guys out there, or Gilbert Durinho Burns just doesn't have the gas tank to be that active on the ground in an MMA fight when he gets there. I'll let you guys be the judge of which one it was. But other than that, the fight wasn't too exciting. A bit of a letdown considering, but you know, you have to consider that Stephen Thompson is one of the most tricky strikers in the UFC. And he frustrates a lot of people. We saw that in the Jeff Neal fight, or the Neil Magny again. I get confused with those guys, the Neals. But he fought with them. He got Jeff Neal. He got really frustrated fighting with him. He was like a wrestler, couldn't get going. He was getting picked apart because Wonder Boy, he got power, but he's like the death by 1,000 cuts type of guy. He breaks you down over time, and so you have to take a very measured approach when you fight him. That's the approach that Gilbert Burns went, and just showing that, yeah, he's still got it, because Wonder Boy is in good form right now. He's beating young guys all the time. He beat Vincente Luque, a teammate of Gilbert Burns, pretty decisively and easily, and people are afraid of Luque. Luque is a threat standing up, and you know, he takes apart guys like that. But there you go. Fight went to Gilbert Burns. Not that fun of a fight, but I understand why it went that way. And then you have the main event, which is my personal fight of the night. It fucking delivered in all regards. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus the notorious Conor McGregor. And I want to say right off the bat, I said in my Fighters Picks video that a human beings, they say, are teleological creatures, in that when a person has a goal in sight and they work towards that goal, they will find that way to that goal. And as I said before, Conor McGregor has accomplished every goal he could possibly have. He was a 2-division champion, and now at this point, he is filthy rich. He just got $600 million by selling his liquor company. He also got like $100 million off the Floyd Mayweather fight. So, and God knows how much money he has in assets, right? So how in the fuck do you fight as a cage fighter when you have that much money? Like if you're coming into fights on a private yacht, how do you get that warrior spirit at that point? Like, it just doesn't compute for me, and we saw that in the fight. Now, to give Conor McGregor a lot of credit, because, you know, a lot of people shit on him blindly, and you know what? Like, I used to be a big fan of McGregor. I really was. I think he's the reason why I got an MMA membership. I mean, like, I'm one of those guys, you know, I got on the hype train and I got on it. So when I make criticisms about him, it comes from the heart. We saw that in the fight. Well, I don't think he was any worse than the way he fought in 2015 and 2016 against Eddie Alvarez and Nate Diaz or Jose Aldo, all those classic fights. He has not evolved and he has not improved since that time. Again, I looked back and forth before this card. You know, I watched his previous fights. I think UFC uploaded plenty of free fights of Conor McGregor, and he was doing a lot of the same stuff he did back then. But then Dustin Poirier, you got to keep in mind, Dustin Poirier is one of the best fighters on the planet, and he's been one of the most active fighters on the planet. And he has been up against some of the best competition in MMA. He has wins over Justin Gaethje. He has wins over Dan Hooker. He has wins over Max Holloway. He has wins over McGregor himself. The list just goes. He has wins over Eddie Alvarez. I mean, the wins that Dustin Poirier has done is pretty fucking incredible at this point. It's just ridiculous how good of a fighter he is. And you know what? Ever since that Khabib fight, he got even better. He got even better. Now, let's start the fight breakdown. So the fight opens. McGregor starts throwing some spinning kicks. He was very kick heavy. He went back to his karate stance and his style, and he was looking like vintage Conor McGregor in those first 30 to 40 seconds. He's throwing very active with the kicks, punching back and forth, but you know, even in that 30 to 40 seconds where Conor McGregor is usually scary, Dustin was in exceptionally good form. He was catching a lot of those kicks. He was slipping a lot of McGregor's punches. And again, he was in tight form. And then once Dustin got his offensive going, he was really laying the beating on McGregor. First, he opened with some leg kicks, which caught him, just as they did in the second fight. And then you got to keep in mind, this is just something I want to bring up completely out of topic. But a lot of people were thinking that Dustin Poirier only managed to beat Conor McGregor the second time because, he found the blueprint, the leg kicks, and he caught him off guard. That is not true at all. Leg kicks were not part of Dustin Poirier's plan. Leg kicks are just a thing that 2020 modern fighters do. Calf kicks in particular. Calf kicks are just a staple of a striker's arsenal in today's day and age. And they throw calf kicks the same way they throw jabs. It's just something easy and quick to throw out that does a lot of investment. There's a low risk, high reward to throwing them. So that's just a thing he did. But we saw in this fight that when Dustin Poirier started to let his hands go, he did a lot of damage. He was walking Conor McGregor back and beating his ass in the striking. All the strikes he landed were power shots on McGregor, and they did a lot of damage to the point. Now remember, in the pre-fight interview, that McGregor was saying, that the first one to wrestle was a dusty bitch. McGregor was the first one to wrestle. As soon as he got hit by those power shots by Dustin, he starts going in the clinch, and then Dustin goes for a takedown. And during the takedown, McGregor just decided he was a jiu-jitsu black belt and went for a guillotine. Guillotines are one of those things that don't work as often as they say they do. I remember in jiu-jitsu tournaments, I'm not the best jiu-jitsu guy out there, but just the coaches yelling, give up on the guillotine, give up on it, just move on to something else. And that's usually the best advice. But McGregor, he committed to those guillotines. He went for them, put a lot of power into them, but Dustin is a well-rounded fighter. He popped out of the guillotine on the ground. He worked his way off the cage, and he started landing some vicious ground and pound. And I got to say, this was one of the most one-sided beatdowns I've ever seen in MMA. You know what? I'm going to just throw something out there. The way Dustin Poirier was raining elbows on Conor McGregor's face and the way he was landing his ground and pound he fucking did it 10 times better and more dangerous than the way Khabib did. And I'm not shitting on Khabib. I still think that Khabib is the best lightweight fighter in MMA, the way he smoked high-level competition. But man, Dustin Poirier has made some improvements to his game, to his ground game in particular, because this was a savage mauling. He was just raining elbows on McGregor's face. He was getting up there, and he was just active. I mean, the guy was pissed the fuck off, and it showed. He was landing it. Some illegal up kicks by McGregor. He grabbed Dustin's glove to pull him in for some leg kicks. And you know what? I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't think that was deliberate. I think the guy was in fucking survivor mode. I think that Dustin was just savagely laying down the beatdown so bad that McGregor was just grasping for anything to get out of there. That's what I think happened. And then this cinematic moment happens. McGregor and Dustin Poirier get up at the end of the round, and they both fire a cross at each other. Both their crosses miss, but Conor McGregor lands bad on his foot or something, and his leg breaks. His leg breaks like almost as bad as it did in the Weidman fight, almost as bad as Anderson Silva. Not quite as bad because it kind of was only noticeable on the floor. And then Dustin landed a few extra shots, and then that was the end of the fight. Now, I watched some YouTube videos by like that doctor guy and whatever, but the best theory that I've seen come out is that his leg was continually fractured throughout the duration of the fight, kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts type of thing. And then landing on his foot was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what broke his leg, which is a sign of inactivity and improper shin conditioning, especially since, he started throwing calf kicks in this fight. McGregor doesn't usually throw calf kicks, but he went for it because, why wouldn't you? It's just such a useful move, but it didn't. And then, that was the fight. They started talking trash. It was really satisfying, after hearing like all these casual MMA fans boo Dustin Poirier, especially when he's defeated like this list of rogues gallery. Is just like that pissed me off. But he finally got back at them in the post-fight interview. He was completely savage. He even did Conor McGregor's Billy Strut to him while he was lying there on the floor recovering, and he said, Karma's not a bitch. It's a mirror. He broke down what happened in the fight, and he told the crowd who booed him to kiss his asshole. And guess what? They cheered for him, and the guy finally got the people's respect. I was genuinely frustrated by the casual fans' reception. I know that Dustin doesn't have the same mic skills that Conor does, but as a fighter, he's really well-rounded, and he's really made some adjustments since Habib kicked his ass. He looks really good right now, especially on the ground. And he's fought the highest level of competition in MMA. I really think that he's got a huge chance of beating Oliveira. I think that he is favored in that fight. He's just a bad matchup for that. And then, in the post-fight interview, McGregor starts talking shit. He starts really grasping at straws with doctor stoppage. This fight, let's be honest here. Doctor stoppage or not, he was going to get finished in the second round. We do not need to see a fourth fight. Dana White was calling for a fourth fight with Dustin Poirier. No, this is not a rivalry anymore at this point. This is settled science at this point. Conor McGregor cannot compete with these guys from the lightweight division. He's been gone from the sport for too long, and he's going to be gone even more, just unfortunately recovering from his leg injury, because everybody likes to talk shit now, but it sucks when you get your foot destroyed like that. And he cannot, he would have got his ass kicked in throughout the fight. We know that McGregor's best round is his first round, and he got completely fucking dominated on the feet and on the ground. And you know what? He cannot fight Dustin again. Dustin he could kill him. It's a bad matchup, period. But even looking at the UFC rankings, let me pop them up. The lightweight rankings, McGregor matches up pretty badly against all these guys. You got Charles Oliveira, who is a pretty competent striker now. He knocked out Michael Chandler with a hook, which caught everybody off guard. I would have never expected Charlie Olives to destroy Chandler like that. That was completely surprising. Dustin Poirier, which is settled science at this point. Justin Gaethje, which, if you thought Dustin's calf kicks are bad, Justin is it's really hard to say Justin and Dustin back to forth, but Gaethje's calf kicks are even more dangerous than Dustin's. And Gaethje is one of the most powerful strikers in MMA. The guy broke fucking Kamaru Usman's nose in training. I think that's what happened. So, if Gaethje is landing power shots on welterweights, the welterweight champion, that just goes to show you how dangerous of a striker he is. Dariush, who has a very solid ground game and a very durable chin, who would survive McGregor's onslaught. Chandler, who is very well-rounded in the striking and the wrestling, would take him. Tony Ferguson would be an interesting fight just because, unfortunately, I'm a big Tony Ferguson fan. Talking about Tony Ferguson is almost makes a good video in its own right. Tony, it's unfortunate to see his career go the way it's going, but, he would be pretty good against Conor McGregor. That would be a good fight. RDA, again, Rafael dos Anjos has been highly active at this point in fighting. And again, he's got the ground game. Dan Hooker is a bad fight for him. Again, even in the striking, I think Hooker is a bad matchup. Islam Makhachev would just be Khabib all over again. Gregor Gillespie, again, would just wrestle him to death. Maybe Kevin Lee is a good fight. Oh, my God. Diego Ferreira would be bad against him. They're all killers. Brad Riddell looked really friggin' good against what's his name? Oh, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. I'll have to throw it up there in the. I'll have to throw it up there in post. I'm sorry, buddy. You had a good fight. Drew Dober. There we go. Drew Dober. He had a good fight against Drew Dober. Thiago Moises. Again, he cannot fight these guys. You'd have to go back to featherweight because it's pretty clear that he doesn't have the power, the sting that he did in lightweight. It just isn't match. That's the thing we noticed with Max Holloway when he fought in lightweight, where he just didn't have the power anymore to compete with those guys. So that's my thoughts on the card. It was a phenomenal card. I think it's basically the pay-per-view of the summer. If you don't usually buy a pay-per-view, this would have been the one to spend money on. I'm very glad that people are finally giving Dustin Poirier some respect. I'm surprised that, just really frustrated to listen to those casual fans that don't know the guy and the guy's history. But again, phenomenal card. One of my favorite cards. And with that, best of luck there. As for the direction of my channel, there will be some more gaming content coming soon. Those videos are a pain in the ass to edit. But other than that, in between editing the gaming content, I'll throw up some UFC videos. So have a good one, everybody.